Welcome to part 12 of this tutorial series on Excel VBA user forms. This video is going to explain how to use toggle buttons. It's a fairly short video because toggle buttons are fairly straightforward. They're a lot like checkboxes in terms of the way they work. So we'll explain how you can draw a toggle button on the form and then how to change some of its basic properties. Explain how to write code that tests the value of a toggle button to perform different actions. And then right towards the end we'll explain how to set the default value of the toggle button when the form first launches. So there's not much to do, but let's get started. So here's our quick example of a toggle button. This one lets the user choose whether the film they're adding into the list should be sorted by its ID number, which I'll show you in just a moment, or by its title. So you'll see that if I click on the toggle button, it switches between one of two different states, either sorting by title or by ID. So although they look quite different, they're functionally identical to a checkbox. They've got a true state and a false state. They can also be set up to be triple state, which allows them to have a null value, although I haven't done that one for this particular example. So if I do choose sort by title and click add to the list, I'll see the new film gets added in, but sorted alphabetically by its title. We've also indicated that the title column has been sorted by adding an asterisk to the end of the column name. This is picked up on when the form is next loaded, so if I click OK and show the form again, it detects whether the title column has been sorted to set the default value of the toggle button. So they're not particularly complicated. A few little things to do here. Let's get stuck in. To start with, I need to add an extra column of data to the worksheet. So I'm going to pick column A for this. I'm going to call it ID, and then just type in the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So these just represent the current positions of the films in the list, and that will help us to get back to the original sort order later on when we start sorting by the title column instead. We also need to make sure that when a new film does get added to the list via the form, then it calculates the next ID number for the film as well. So let's head back to the Visual Basic Editor, and we'll go to the code behind the Add to List button, and then find the code for the add data to list procedure. So we can right click and choose definition. Then we just need to add in an extra line of code that adds in the next ID number in the sequence. So at this point I'll be in the next available blank cell in column B, and I want to add the ID number to column A. So I need to say active cell.offset 0, -1, so that's one column to the left, dot value is equal to active cell.offset -1, -1. So that's the cell that's one column to the left and one row above the current cell, dot value plus 1. So all that we'll do is add in the next ID number in the sequence. Just to give that a really quick test, if I switch back into Excel, head back to the menu sheet and show them the form on screen, I'll just fill in any random details. It genuinely does not matter at this point, just to make sure it works. If I just choose a couple of options and then click add to list, I'll find the next ID number of the sequence gets added in automatically. So let's click OK, head back to sheet 1 and we'll just delete that test row. Now what we can do is get on and draw the toggle button on the form. So back into the Visual Basic Editor and we'll get on with actually drawing the button. You'll find the toggle button in the toolbox just as usual, so I can click on the tool and then click and drag on the form to draw one. I'll then change a couple of its basic properties, so I'm going to change its name property first of all, so it's called sort by title. I'll change its caption so that it's called sort by ID. So when the form first appears, the caption will be saying sort by ID, but I'll set it up so that when we click on the button, the text of the caption changes to say sort by title instead. The default value of the toggle button will be set to false by default. Just like with a checkbox, you can change that to true if you want to. I want to set this to false, so I want it to be not sorted by title by default. You can also set up a toggle button to be triple state, just like with a checkbox. So there's a triple state property there, and that allows you to have a null value for the toggle button as well. So if I choose true, I can choose to remove the default value altogether, and the toggle button will have a null value. But for this particular example, I want it not to be a triple state toggle button. I want its default value to be false. Let's add in the code that will change the button's caption when its value changes. So the simplest thing to do here is to double click on the button to get the default event handler for that particular object. So for the toggle button, the default event is click. I'd actually like to use the change event rather than click, because I'd like this code to be triggered not just when the user clicks on it, but when the value of the toggle button changes via any other means. So later on we'll change its value in code. So what we want to do is make sure that if sort by title.value, and just like any Boolean property, you can test explicitly whether that's equal to true or equal to false. But if you want to test if a Boolean value is true, you can just say if sort by title.value. Then what I want to do is change sort by title.caption to be equal to sort by title. Else I want its caption sort by title.caption to be equal to sort by ID. Okay, so that's nice and simple. We can give this one a quick little test back in Excel, show the form on screen, and then clicking on the button should change its title based on whether it's true or false. So that bit's nice and simple. What we need to do next is make sure that if we do choose sort by title, that the data gets sorted alphabetically by the film's titles when it's added into the list. So let's get back to the code behind the click event of the Add to List button by double-clicking on it, and then I want to get to the Add Data to List procedure, so I can right-click on that and choose Definition. Then scrolling down towards the bottom, after we've finished adding in all the data to the list, all we're going to do then is check if sort by title dot value, then I'm going to say range A2 dot current region. So current region refers to the entire block of cells in which cell A2 sits. Then I'm going to apply a sort to that, and I'm going to change two parameters here. So I'm going to say key1 colon equals range B2. So that indicates that column B will be the one that's used to perform the sort. The default order is in ascending order, so I'm not going to change that, but I am going to add in one extra argument. I'm going to say header colon equals XL yes to make sure that it definitely does use the header row. We'll just add in an else clause then, and essentially the else clause is going to be exactly the same thing, just that rather than sorting by column B, we're going to be sorting by column A instead. So we can update that really quickly and simply. Then don't forget the end if, and then that's all the code written. All we need to do now is give it a quick test. So let's head back into Excel, and then we'll show the form on screen, and it really doesn't matter what values I fill in here just for testing purposes. Let's just make sure we've selected all the things we need to select, and then I'm going to choose to sort by title first. Click Add to List, and I'll find that the new film has been added in, and it's definitely been sorted alphabetically by its name. Now we do have one small problem if I choose to sort by ID next time, and in fact even if I don't choose to sort by ID, but I've got a small problem with the way that I'm adding the ID numbers in. If I click OK, then show the form on screen again, and then add in a new film, doesn't really matter again what details I fill in, as long as I've selected a bunch of values. It doesn't matter whether I choose to sort by ID or by name. If I click Add to List, the ID number of the next film that's been added isn't quite right. So I've added in this new film, but its ID number is number 3 rather than the number 7, which is what it should have been. And the reason for this is because of the way I've added the code to add in the ID number. It relies on the idea that the list is already in the correct order of ID numbers. So we need to think about how we can solve this little issue. We could simply make sure that before the new film gets added into the list, we've automatically sorted the list by ID number. That's probably a little bit inefficient. It might be simpler just to calculate what the current maximum value of the ID number column is, and then simply add 1 to the result of that, and that's the approach we're going to take. So I'm going to click OK first, just head back to sheet 1, and I'm going to delete manually these extra test rows, so I can just highlight the row and then click press Control minus on the keyboard to delete the entire row at a time, and then again just delete that row. And then what we'll do is head back into the Visual Basic Editor, and we'll just modify the code behind the Add to List click event and the Add Data to List procedure. So all we need to do here is replace the little section of code that refers to the value of the cell that's one column to the left and one row above the active cell, and replace it instead with a call to the worksheet function max, which you may well have used in Excel worksheets before. So the idea is that you pass in the range of cells whose maximum value you want to find. So what we're going to do is refer to the entirety of column A, so that seems like the simplest, easiest thing to do here. As we can say, columns A, and then plus 1 to the result of that. Okay, so having done that, if I switch back into Excel now, and give this one another quick test, back to the menu sheet, add in a new film, and again, doesn't matter what details we use here for testing, and then click Add to List. I'll sort by name again, just so we've replicated the same situation as last time. So the new film gets added in, and it's got the ID number 6. Click OK. Then I'll add in a new film, and again, doesn't matter what numbers I fill in here, as long as they are actually numbers. And then click Add to List again. I'll sort it by the ID number this time. We should find that the new film gets added in with the new ID number regardless of what order the list was previously in. So that solves that little issue. For the last part of the video, it'd be nice if we could make it so that the toggle button detects how the list is currently sorted and chooses the appropriate option by default each time the form loads. So to make that work, what I'm going to do is head back onto sheet 1, and we're going to do this just by indicating using an asterisk which column is currently sorted in the list. So having done that, what we're going to do then is head back to the Visual Basic editor, and then when the form first loads, I'm going to go to the initialize event of the form. So if I double click on the background of the form, that will take me to the initialize event. We're going to just set up the default value for the checkbox by finding out which column has got the asterisk in its title. So we can do this using an if statement. So I'm going to say if, then I'm going to use the write function to check if the write of wsfilms.range b2 dot value comma 1 equals an asterisk then. So what that's doing is it's checking if the title column has the asterisk at the end of its name. If that's true, then what I would like to do is set the sort by title toggle button value to be equal to true. And that will also trigger the change event of that toggle button, and it will, in doing so, change the caption of the button automatically. All we have to do then is make sure that when the user does click the Add to List button, that in the sorting code, if I just double click to go back to the film details form, so when the list is sorted, it makes sure that it changes the caption or changes the header row in the worksheet to add the asterisk to the correct column. So just going back to the Add to List code, what we need to do then is add in a couple of extra lines into each of these clauses of the if statement. So if you've chosen to sort by title, what I would like to do is say range a2 dot value equals ID, and then range b2 dot value equals, value rather than validation, equals title asterisk. And then I can simply copy and paste these two lines into the else clause and then just reverse that, so the ID will have the asterisk and the title won't. So having set all that up, what we can do now is just give this a quick little test by heading back into Excel and showing the form on screen. So currently the list is sorted by ID number rather than by title, so the button's defaulted to a false state. If I then just add in a new film, doesn't really matter what I do here, again just make sure I've filled in all the things I need to fill in. What we can then do is choose to sort this one by title instead. If I choose Add to List at this point, that will indeed be sorted by title, and then I can click OK. And then the next time I show the form on screen, it should have automatically selected Sort by Title for the toggle button. So I can add in another film once again and do the reverse just to make sure it works in both directions. And I uncheck that, just choose Sort by ID, choose Add to List. So hopefully you've been seeing the asterisk has been switching around in the column headings. Then click OK again, and if I show the form on screen this time, it's going to be sorted by ID rather than by name. So there we go, short, simple video all about toggle buttons, but then toggle buttons are fairly simple in and of themselves. So if you found that one useful, join us for the next one. If you like what you've seen here, why not head over to the WiseL website, where you can find loads more free resources, including these videos, some written blogs and tutorials, and even some exercises that you can download to practice your skills. Thanks for watching, see you next time.